Commander Zara Veltani stood in the command center of Haven's rest station and looked at the data screen in front of her. The numbers made her feel confident. Her crystalline skin reflected the blue light from the displays as she read through. The intelligence reports one more time. The reports all said the same thing about the humans in the Proxima frontier. They had sent a small patrol fleet to the Kepler 442 system. The word small appeared in every single report. Zara had been fighting space battles for 60 years. She knew what small meant. Small meant maybe 5 or 6 ships at most. Small meant a routine patrol that would run away the moment they saw real opposition. Small meant the humans were not taking this territory dispute seriously. This made Zara smile. The humans would learn to take the galactic hegemony seriously very soon. The door to the command center opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Leerily Moonwhisper walked in with the grace that only ancient elves possessed. Her silver hair flowed behind her like liquid starlight. Her green eyes held the wisdom of 800 years. She moved to stand beside Zara and looked at the same data screens. The humans think they can claim our ancestral territory, Leerily said in her musical voice. They do not understand that elves have held these star systems for thousands of years. Before humans even learned to make fire, my people were sailing between these stars. Zara nodded. The alliance between her people and the elves was new. Both species had reasons to distrust the rapidly expanding human colonies. The humans claimed they had legal rights to mine in the Kepler system. They said they had signed treaties with the previous occupants. But neither the hegemony nor the Elven Dominion recognized these treaties. "What does your fleet look like?" Zara asked the elf admiral. Leerily's expression became proud. 12 bioships, each one grown in the nursery, gardens of my homeworld, each one powered by captured starlight and guided by living neural networks. The eternal bloom alone has destroyed enemy fleets that outnumbered it 10-1. Zara felt even more confident. Her own fleet consisted of 37 ships. The newest vessels used quantum drives and plasma weapons. The oldest ships had proven themselves in dozens of battles across the galaxy. Combined with the 12 elven bioships, they would have 49 vessels against whatever small human force was waiting in the Kepler system. Intelligence Officer Nyx Quarian scuttled into the command center on her 6 insectoid legs. Her compound eyes processed information faster than any computer. She carried a datapad in her 4 hands and clicked her mandibles as she spoke. "I have finished analyzing all available intelligence on the human forces," Nyx said. "Every source confirms the same information. The humans have deployed what they call a small fleet to the disputed system. Their own communications refer to it as routine patrol strength." Zara laughed. The sound echoed off the metal walls of the command center. "Routine patrol strength. Do they think we are some primitive species that will be scared away by a few patrol boats?" Navigator Kira Salandis looked up from her star charts. Her blue skin had patches of darker blue that showed her excitement. "Commander, I have plotted the hyperspace route to the Kepler system. We can arrive within 3 days if we leave immediately." The plan was simple. Both fleets would jump into the system at the same time. They would demand that the humans leave immediately. When the humans saw 49 warships against their small patrol fleet, they would have no choice but to retreat. No blood would be shed. The humans would learn to respect the territorial claims of older species. The Proxima frontier would remain under hegemony and dominion control. Zara walked to the observation deck that looked out into space. Dozens of ships floated around Haven's rest station. Some belonged to traders from across the galaxy. Others were diplomatic vessels from species she had never seen before. But none of them looked as powerful as her fleet or the elven bioships. She thought about the humans. They were a young species. They had only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago. Most species took thousands of years to spread across multiple star systems. The humans had done it in 2 centuries. This rapid expansion worried many of the older galactic civilizations. But rapid expansion did not mean military strength. The humans had focused on building colonies and trade routes. They had not built the massive fleets that real galactic powers possessed. Their military was probably designed for fighting pirates and smugglers, not real warships. Admiral Leerily joined her on the observation deck. The elf pointed to where her bioships waited in the distance. Even from far away, Zara could see that they were beautiful. They looked like living creatures instead of metal machines. Their hulls curved and flowed like the bodies of space whales. Soft lights pulsed along their sides like heartbeats. "My ships can feel the anger of my people," Lyrelei said. "They want to reclaim what belongs to us. The neural networks that guide them are connected to the collective memory of our race. They remember when humans were still primitive barbarians on their single world." Zara nodded. Her own ships might not be living creatures, but they were still deadly. The hegemony had spent centuries perfecting their weapons and defensive systems. Their plasma cannons could punch through any known armor. Their quantum shields could deflect energy weapons that would destroy entire cities. "How long since your people last fought humans?" Zara asked. Lyrelei thought for a moment. "Never directly. We have observed their small conflicts with pirates and raiders. Their tactics are crude but effective against such weak opponents. They rely on kinetic weapons instead of elegant energy systems. They build their ships for durability instead of grace." This confirmed what Zara had already suspected. Human military technology was behind the galactic standard. They used primitive, ballistic weapons because they had not mastered plasma projection or quantum field manipulation. They built ugly, blocky ships because they did not understand the principles of efficient design. The meeting ended with both commanders agreeing to proceed with the plan. Their combined fleets would jump to the Kepler system in exactly 72 hours. They would give the humans one chance to withdraw peacefully. If the humans refused, they would face the full military might of two of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Zara returned to her flagship and began preparing her crews for the operation. She sent messages to all 37 of her captains. The orders were simple: jump to the Kepler system, form battle lines, wait for the human surrender. She did not expect the operation to take more than a few hours. Small patrol fleets did not fight against overwhelming odds. The humans would see the size of the force arrayed against them and make the intelligent choice. They would retreat and report to their superiors that the Proxima frontier was too well defended to claim. As her fleet prepared to depart Haven's Rest, Zara felt satisfied. Soon the humans would learn that the galaxy was not theirs to take. Some territories belonged to species that had claimed them long before humanity had even reached for the stars. Navigator Kira Salandis felt the familiar sensation of dropping out of hyperspace. The stars shifted from streaks of light back to points of brightness as her ship's quantum drive shut down. Around her, 48 other vessels materialized in the darkness of the Kepler 442 system. The combined fleet had arrived exactly on schedule. Kira immediately began scanning the system with her navigation sensors. She expected to find the small human patrol fleet quickly. Instead, her sensors gave her readings that made no sense. There were definitely human ships in the system, but the numbers seemed wrong. Her equipment detected 5 vessels, not the dozen or more she had expected from a patrol fleet. "Commander Veltani," Kira called over the communication system, "I am reading only 5 human vessels in the system. This seems too small even for a patrol force." On her own ship, Captain Celera Dawnbreaker extended her consciousness through the neural networks of the Eternal Bloom. The living ship responded to her thoughts like an extension of her own body. She could feel the quantum fluctuations of the other vessels in the system through her bioship's sensory organs. Something felt wrong. The human ships registered as dense masses of metal and energy, but their signatures were unlike anything in the Elven databases. They were not just large for patrol vessels. They seemed impossibly compact, as if someone had taken the mass of an entire fleet and compressed it into just 5 ships. "Admiral Moonwhisper," Solara reported through the biolink that connected all Elven vessels. "The human ships are larger than expected. Their energy signatures do not match our records of human patrol craft." Admiral Lyrelei received the message through the quantum consciousness network that linked her to all 12 bioships. She felt the concern of her captains like whispers in her ancient mind. The elves had been watching human expansion for decades. Their databases contained detailed information about human ship classes and capabilities. "Show me the human vessels," Lyrelei commanded. The main display in her command chamber lit up with images captured by her fleet's sensors. 5 human ships hung in space near the asteroid mining platforms they were apparently protecting. Even from a distance, Lyrelei could see that these were not typical patrol craft. The largest ship was massive beyond anything she had seen in human fleets before. It was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapon emplacements. Its hull was thick and angular, built like a fortress that could fly through space. The other 4 ships were smaller, but still enormous compared to normal human patrol vessels. On the flagship of the Hegemony fleet, Commander Zara examined the same sensor data. Intelligence Officer Nix Quarian scuttled around the command center, her compound eyes processing multiple data streams simultaneously. "This does not match our intelligence reports," Nix clicked in frustration. "These ships are much larger than anything the humans have deployed in frontier regions before. The largest vessel appears to be a Dreadnought-class ship." Zara felt a small flutter of uncertainty. Dreadnought-class ships were not deployed for routine patrol duties. They were the backbone of major fleet operations. But every intelligence report had specifically mentioned a small human force. Perhaps the humans had simply sent larger ships than usual. A communication signal reached all 49 Allied vessels at the same time. The message came from the largest human ship and was broadcast on standard diplomatic frequencies. "Attention approaching fleets. This is Admiral Lisa Kane of the Terran Colonial Authority vessel TNS Leviathan. You have entered a system where the TCA holds legal mining rights under treaty with the former occupants. Please state your intentions and identify your vessels according to standard galactic protocols." The voice was calm and professional. Admiral Kane sounded like someone who had handled territorial disputes many times before. There was no fear in her tone, despite being outnumbered almost 10 to 1. Zara decided to respond first. "Admiral Kane, this is Commander Zara Veltani of the Galactic Hegemony. The territory you claim belongs to the Hegemony and our allies in the Elven Dominion. Your treaties are not recognized by our governments. We demand that you withdraw your vessels." "Immediately," the response came quickly. "Commander Veltani, I understand your position. However, the Terran Colonial Authority has documentation proving our legal right to operate in this system. These mining operations employ over 10,000 civilian workers. I cannot simply abandon them based on territorial claims that were not raised when we first established our presence here." Admiral Lyrelai opened her own communication channel. "Admiral Kane, I am Admiral Lyrelai Moonwhisper of the Elven Dominion. My people have held these star systems for millennia. Your species had not even developed spaceflight when elves first sailed between these worlds. Your recent treaties cannot override our ancient claims." There was a pause before Admiral Kane responded. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of tired patience. "Admiral Moonwhisper, I respect the age and accomplishments of your civilization, but the galaxy has changed since ancient times. Modern territorial law requires active occupation and development. The previous occupants of this system abandoned it 3 centuries ago. The TCA has invested billions of credits and thousands of lives in developing these resources." Scout Maya Starweaver listened to the diplomatic exchange while running detailed scans of the human vessels. Her small reconnaissance ship had the most advanced sensor systems in the Elven fleet. What she discovered made her immortal heart beat faster with concern. The human ships were not just larger than expected, they were impossibly dense with technology. Her scans revealed layer upon layer of armor plating, weapon systems, and power generators. The smallest human vessel carried more firepower than most Elven cruisers. The largest ship showed energy readings that exceeded anything in her databases. "Admiral," Maya reported through the biolink, "the human vessels are heavily armed beyond anything we have encountered before. Their weapon systems appear to be designed for major fleet engagements, not patrol duties." Zara was receiving similar reports from her own intelligence officers. The human ships carried enough firepower to devastate entire planets. Their defensive systems included energy shields, armor plating, and point defense networks that could handle massive attacks. "Admiral Kane," Zara transmitted, "we have 49 warships under our combined command. You have 5 vessels. Surely you can see that resistance would be futile. Withdraw now and we can resolve this through diplomatic channels." The human admiral's response was immediate. "Commander Veltani, I have my orders to protect TCA operations and personnel in this system. I am not authorized to abandon our position based on threats. However, I am willing to discuss reasonable compromises that respect all parties' interests." Intelligence Officer Nix felt her mandibles clicking with nervous energy. In her experience, no commander ever chose to fight against overwhelming odds. unless they had advantages that were not immediately apparent. The human admiral's calm confidence suggested that she knew something the Allied fleets did not. Navigator Kira tried to scan deeper into the human ship configurations. Her sensors revealed that each vessel was built with multiple redundant systems. They had backup power generators, secondary weapon arrays, and armor systems that could absorb enormous amounts of damage. These were not patrol ships. These were ships designed to fight and win against multiple opponents. Captain Solara felt the growing unease of her bioship through their neural connection. The Eternal Bloom's living sensors were detecting threat patterns that made no sense. The human vessels were broadcasting targeting data and weapons locks as if they were preparing for combat. But no rational commander would fight against such overwhelming numerical superiority. Admiral Lyralai made one final attempt at diplomacy. "Admiral Kane, we do not wish to destroy your vessels or harm your personnel, but we cannot allow human expansion to continue unchecked in this region. Withdraw your fleet and we will guarantee safe passage for your civilian miners." The response came after a long pause. "I'm sorry, but I cannot comply with that request. The TCA does not abandon its people or its commitments. If you choose to attack, we will defend ourselves and our operations." The communication channel closed. 49 Allied warships faced 5 human vessels in the silent darkness of space. The diplomatic phase was over. Both sides began preparing for what would come next. Commander Zara Veltani ordered her 37 ships into battle formation. The sight filled her with confidence again. Her vessels spread out in a perfect attack pattern, their weapons powered and shields raised. The crystalline hull of her flagship reflected the light from dozens of plasma cannons as they charged to full power. Admiral Lyralai felt the battle song of her 12 bioships resonating through her consciousness. The living vessels began to sing in harmonies that only elves could hear. Their hulls glowed with internal light as ancient weapons systems awakened. The Eternal Bloom's neural networks reached out to coordinate with the other ships, creating a web of shared awareness that spanned the entire elven formation. 49 warships against 5. The numbers were so overwhelming that Zara almost felt sorry for the human crews. Admiral Kane had chosen death over retreat. It was brave but stupid. In a few minutes, the lesson would be over and the humans would understand their place in the galactic order. The human response confused everyone. Instead of forming a defensive line with all 5 ships, 4 of the human vessels remained in their original positions. Only the smallest ship, designated TNS Iron Wolf, moved forward to meet the approaching Allied fleet. Navigator Kira watched her sensors in disbelief. "Commander, the humans are sending only one ship against our entire force. Their destroyer is advancing alone while their other vessels maintain position." On the bioship Eternal Bloom, Captain Solara felt her ship's confusion through their neural link. The living vessel could not understand why a single enemy would approach an entire fleet. In elven military doctrine, such behavior indicated either madness or the presence of some hidden advantage. A new voice came over the communication channels. "This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the TNS Iron Wolf. Fleet Command, requesting permission to demonstrate standard defensive protocols." The response came from Admiral Kane on the massive dreadnought. "Permission granted, Wolfpack. Show our guests what routine patrol strength looks like." Intelligence Officer Nix processed this exchange with growing unease. The humans were talking about demonstrations and routine protocols. They did not sound like a desperate crew making a final stand. They sounded like instructors preparing to teach a lesson. The TNS Iron Wolf accelerated toward the Allied formation. As it approached, its hull began to transform. Thousands of panels opened across its surface, revealing weapon systems that had been hidden inside the ship's armor. Gun turrets emerged and rotated to track targets. Missile launchers extended from concealed bays. Energy projectors powered, up with the distinctive whine of charging capacitors. Scout Maya Starweaver counted the weapons appearing on the human destroyer. Her elven senses could perceive details that electronic sensors missed. What she saw made her voice shake as she reported to Admiral Moonwhisper. "Admiral, the human destroyer is not just one ship. It is thousands of weapons connected together. Every surface is covered with guns, missiles, and energy projectors. I count more individual weapon systems on this one vessel than our entire fleet carries." The demonstration began when 3 of Zara's fastest interceptors moved to engage the human destroyer. These small ships were designed for speed and maneuverability. They could dodge most weapon systems while delivering precise strikes against enemy weak points. What happened next would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. The TNS Iron Wolf opened fire with what Captain Rodriguez had called point defense systems. The space around the destroyer filled with thousands of projectiles every second. Metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, created a wall of destruction that no ship could penetrate. The three interceptors did not explode. Dramatically, they did not break apart under enemy fire. They simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, and the next moment there was nothing but expanding clouds of metallic dust. Navigator Kira stared at her sensor displays in shock. "Commander, I am not reading any energy weapon signatures from the human ship. They are using kinetic projectiles, but the rate of fire is impossible. No conventional weapon system can fire that fast. The human destroyer had not even used its main weapons. The thousands of rounds per second were coming from defensive systems designed to stop incoming missiles and fighters. The ship's primary armaments remained silent and untouched. Captain Solara felt the terror of her bioship through their neural connection. The Eternal Bloom had witnessed the destruction of 3 vessels without understanding how it had happened. The living ship's sensors could not track individual projectiles moving at such high speeds. To the bioship's perception, the enemy had simply willed the interceptors out of existence. Admiral Lirelai tried to process what she had seen. In 800 years of life, she had witnessed many different types of weapons. Energy beams that could cut through planets. Plasma bolts that burned at the temperature of stars. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. But she had never seen anything like the human point defense systems. Commander Zara ordered 6 more ships to attack the lone destroyer. These were full-sized frigates with heavy armor and shielding. Surely they could survive long enough to get close to the human vessel. The TNS Iron Wolf adjusted its formation slightly and increased its rate of fire. The space around it became a storm of metal moving at relativistic speeds. The 6 frigates lasted longer than the interceptors, but not much longer. Their shields flared and died under the constant impact of thousands of projectiles. Their armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving at 30% of light speed. One by one, the frigates broke apart. Their hulls cracked under the stress of constant impacts. Their internal systems failed as kinetic rounds punched through multiple layers of protection. Within minutes, 6 more Allied vessels had been reduced to debris. Intelligence Officer Nix realized that her understanding of human technology had been completely wrong. The reports had described primitive kinetic weapons as if they were inferior to energy systems, but there was nothing primitive about weapons that could fire faster than most computers could calculate targeting solutions. "Commander," Nix reported with clicking mandibles, "the human destroyer is not using its primary weapons. These are defensive systems only. The ship still has its main guns, missiles, and heavy energy projectors available." Zara felt cold fear spreading through her crystalline body. 9 ships destroyed, and the humans had barely started fighting. The destroyer continued to advance toward her formation, its point defense systems creating an impenetrable barrier around its hull. Captain Amy Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channels again. "Fleet Command, demonstration complete. Targets eliminated using 15% of available defensive capacity. All primary weapon systems remain at standby status. 15%. The human destroyer had destroyed 9 Allied vessels while using only 15% of its defensive weapons. Its main guns had not fired a single shot. Admiral Kane's response was broadcast to both the human fleet and the Allied forces. "Well done, Wolfpack. Return to formation." Then, addressing the alien and elven commanders directly, she continued. "That was our smallest ship, operating at reduced capacity. I strongly recommend that you reconsider your position." The TNS Iron Wolf rotated slowly and began moving back toward the human formation. Its weapon systems retracted into their armored housings. The thousands of gun turrets that had been visible moments before disappeared behind sliding panels. The ship looked almost peaceful as it rejoined its companions, but everyone had seen what it could do. Everyone had watched 9 warships die without the destroyer even trying hard. Navigator Kira checked her sensors again and again, hoping to find some explanation for what she had witnessed. The human ships remained in their original positions. They had not moved to assist their destroyer. They had not powered up their own weapons. They had simply waited and watched while one small ship demonstrated the futility of attacking them. Scout Maya felt the fear of every elven soul connected to the fleet's bio-neural network. The collective consciousness of her people was reeling from the implications of what they had seen. If the smallest human ship could destroy multiple opponents while barely trying, what could their largest ships do? Admiral Lyrelai stared at the 5 human vessels floating calmly in space. They looked no different than they had before the demonstration, but now she understood that she was not looking at patrol ships. She was looking at instruments of destruction that could devastate entire fleets without effort. Commander Zara's confidence had evaporated completely. She commanded 40 ships against 5, but the numbers no longer mattered. Quality had just proven itself superior to quantity in the most brutal way possible. The humans had not just won a battle. They had demonstrated that there was no battle to fight. Commander Zara Veltani faced the hardest decision of her 60-year military career. She had just watched 9 of her ships destroyed by a single human destroyer using only defensive weapons. Every logical part of her mind screamed that retreat was the only sensible option. But logic was not the only factor in command decisions. The galactic hegemony had spent decades building its reputation as the dominant military power in this region of space. If word spread that a human patrol fleet had forced 49 allied warships to retreat, the political consequences would be devastating. Dozens of member species would question the hegemony's ability to protect them. The entire alliance might collapse. Admiral Lyrelai Moonwhisper felt the weight of 800 years pressing down on her ancient shoulders. The elven people had never surrendered territory to any younger species. To flee from humans would be an insult to the memory of every elf who had died defending their stellar empire. Her bioships were singing songs of rage and humiliation through the neural networks that connected them. "We cannot retreat," Lyrelai transmitted to Commander Zara through their private communication channel. "My people would never forgive such cowardice. Better to die fighting than to live with the shame of running from humans." Zara understood. Her own people measured honor by the willingness to face impossible odds. The crystalline warriors of her homeworld had held their territory for centuries by never backing down from any challenge. Retreat now would brand her as a coward in the eyes of every hegemony citizen. "Then we fight," Zara replied. "May our deaths serve as a warning to the humans that this region of space will never submit to their expansion." Captain Solara Dawnbreaker felt the decision ripple through the bio-neural network that connected all elven vessels. Her ship, the Eternal Bloom, began to sing a different song. The harmonies shifted from battle rage to death song, the ancient melody that elven warriors sang when they chose to die with honor rather than live with defeat. The combined fleet reformed into attack formations. 37 hegemony ships and 12 elven bioships arranged themselves for a final assault on the 5 human vessels. The sight was magnificent and terrible. Thousands of years of military tradition and technological development focused on a single moment of desperate combat. Scout Maya Starweaver whispered a prayer to the ancient elven gods as her reconnaissance ship took position with the main fleet. She knew she was about to die. Her sensors had shown her the true power of human technology. But she was elven, and elves faced death with dignity and courage. The attack began when Captain Solara commanded the Eternal Bloom to fire its main weapons. The bioship channeled the power of captured starlight through living conduits that had been growing for centuries. Beams of pure energy, brighter than the light of suns, reached across space toward the human fleet. The target was the TNS Valkyrie, the second-largest human vessel. The concentrated firepower should have been enough to destroy any known ship. Design. Elven bioweapons had brought down enemy dreadnoughts with single shots. The human ship absorbed the attack without even dimming its running lights. Energy that could have sterilized entire continents splashed harmlessly against the Valkyrie's shields. The defensive barriers around the human cruiser barely flickered under the assault. Captain Amy Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channels with what sounded like genuine regret. "Fleet Command, requesting permission to return fire. The enemy has initiated combat operations." Admiral Kane's response was immediate but heavy with resignation. "Permission granted. All ships are cleared to engage. Minimize casualties where..." Possible. But protect our operations and our people. The TNS Valkyrie's response was swift and terrible. Banks of weapons that had remained hidden suddenly became visible as armor plates slid away. The human ship's return volley was not a single, massive energy beam. Instead, it fired hundreds of separate projectiles, each one accelerated to velocities that made them visible as streaks of light. Navigator Kira watched in fascination and horror as the human weapons approached her sensors. These were not energy, bolts, or plasma charges. They were solid metal slugs, but they were moving at speeds that turned simple matter into instruments of destruction beyond imagination. The projectiles struck the eternal bloom with the force of multiple nuclear explosions. Each impact released energy equivalent to the detonation of small stars. The bioship's living armor, evolved over millennia to deflect energy weapons, provided no protection against kinetic force delivered at relativistic speeds. Captain Solara felt her ship dying through their neural connection. The Eternal Bloom's consciousness was fragmenting as critical systems failed throughout its living hull. The pain was overwhelming, but she held the connection until the end, sharing her ship's death with the dignity that elven tradition demanded. Intelligence Officer Nix realized the fundamental flaw in every intelligence report about human military: technology. The reports had described kinetic weapons as primitive compared to energy systems. But the humans had not stopped with simple projectiles. They had perfected the physics of kinetic energy until their weapons could rival the power. Output of stars. All ships concentrate fire on the largest human vessel, Commander Zara ordered. If they were going to die, they would at least damage the enemy flagship. 36 remaining hegemony ships and 11 surviving bioships focused their combined firepower on the TNS Leviathan. Plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, energy beams, and bioweapons struck the massive dreadnought simultaneously. The combined assault should have been enough to destroy entire space stations. The human flagship absorbed the attack like a mountain absorbing rainfall. Its shields held without strain. Its armor showed no damage. The massive ship continued on its course as if nothing had happened. Admiral Lisa Kane had tried to avoid this moment, but her orders were clear. The Terran Colonial Authority did not abandon its people or its territorial claims. If the Allied fleets insisted on fighting, she would give them the war they demanded. All ships open fire. Full engagement protocols authorized. The human fleet finally unleashed its true power. 5 ships that had been holding back suddenly revealed weapons systems that dwarfed anything in the galactic databases. The TNS Leviathan alone carried more firepower than most planetary defense networks. The main guns of the human dreadnought fired for the first time. Ultra-heavy mass drivers launched projectiles the size of small buildings at significant fractions of light speed. Each round carried the kinetic energy of multiple fusion bombs. When they struck their targets, entire ships simply ceased to exist. Scout Maya watched 12 hegemony vessels die in the first salvo. The human weapons did not just destroy the ships, they erased them. Metal, plastic, and organic matter were reduced to their component atoms by the sheer violence of the impacts. The TNS Thunder Bay and TNS Meridian added their firepower to the engagement. Missile systems that had been hidden inside their hulls deployed and began launching guided projectiles. Each missile was larger than most fighter craft and carried warheads that could devastate cities. Navigator Kira tried to count the incoming weapons, but gave up when the number exceeded her ability to track them. The humans were not just firing more projectiles than seemed possible. They were firing different types of ammunition from weapons systems that should not have been able to fit inside ship hulls of any size. Captain Solara's replacement, commanding one of the few surviving elven bioships, attempted to ram the nearest human vessel. It was a desperate tactic, but ramming had sometimes worked against energy-based defenses. The bioship accelerated to maximum speed and aimed directly at the TNS Iron Wolf. The human destroyer's point defense systems activated again. The ramming ship encountered the same wall of kinetic projectiles that had destroyed the earlier attackers. The bioship's living hull was shredded by thousands of impacts per second. It broke apart long before reaching its target. Commander Zara felt her flagship shuddering under repeated impacts. Her ship's crystalline armor was cracking as human projectiles punched through multiple layers of protection. Emergency systems were failing throughout the vessel. Her crew was dying around her. "All remaining ships, retreat," she transmitted, on an open channel. "By all the gods of space, retreat. These are not warships. These are mobile weapons of planetary destruction." But there were no remaining ships to receive her message. Navigator Kira looked at her tactical display and saw only expanding clouds of debris where 49 Allied warships had been moments before. The entire combined fleet had been destroyed in less than 10 minutes of actual combat. Her own ship was the last survivor, and only because the humans had stopped firing. The 5 human vessels floated calmly in space, surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been the largest military force the Hegemony and Dominion could assemble. "Admiral," Kane's voice came over the emergency frequencies. "Any surviving vessels? This is Admiral Kane. Cease fire and prepare to receive rescue teams. The Terran Colonial Authority does not abandon survivors, regardless of their previous hostility." Kira realized that the humans had stopped shooting, not because they were out of ammunition, but because there were no more targets worth shooting at. They had destroyed an entire fleet while barely trying, and now they were offering to rescue the survivors. The battle was over, but the real war, the war for understanding and survival in a galaxy where humans were far more powerful than anyone had imagined, was just beginning. Navigator Kira Salandis floated in the medical bay of the TNS Meridian, her blue skin pale from shock and blood loss. Human medics worked around her with quiet efficiency, treating injuries that should have been fatal. Their medical technology was as advanced as their weapons, capable of healing damage that would have killed her on any other ship. The humans treated their former enemies with the same care they would show their own people. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, the communications officer, sat beside Kira's medical bed and explained what had happened to the survivors. "The Admiral wants you to know that you fought bravely," Kate said in gentle tones. "Your people showed courage in the face of overwhelming odds. We respect that, even though we were on opposite sides." Kira tried to understand how the humans could be so calm about what had just happened. They had destroyed 48 warships in minutes, but they spoke about it as if it had been a routine training exercise. Their medical teams worked to save the lives of people who had been trying to kill them moments before. "How did you know?" Kira asked weakly. "How did you know we were coming?" Kate smiled sadly. "We've been monitoring the military buildup in this region for months. Our intelligence services track the movement of your fleets long before you reach the rendezvous point. Admiral Kane hoped that a show of our defensive capabilities would convince you to withdraw without bloodshed." On the TNS Leviathan, Admiral Lyrelei Moonwhisper sat across from Admiral Lisa Kane in the human flagship's conference room. The elf's 800 years of experience had never prepared her for this moment. She had just watched the destruction of the most powerful fleet her people could assemble. "I need to understand," Lyrelei said, her musical voice heavy with grief. "Your ships were outnumbered almost 10 to 1. By every principle of naval warfare, you should have been destroyed. How is this possible?" Admiral Kane leaned forward with the patient expression of someone who had explained this many times before. "Admiral Moonwhisper, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about human military philosophy. You saw 5 ships and assumed we were at a disadvantage. We saw 49 ships and planned accordingly." Kane activated a holographic display that showed the human vessels in detail. "Each of our ships is designed to fight multiple opponents simultaneously. The TNS Leviathan alone carries more firepower than most planetary defense systems. What you encountered was not a patrol fleet by human standards. It was a deterrent force." Lyrelei studied the technical specifications with growing amazement. The human ships were not just larger than they had appeared, they were exponentially more complex. Each vessel contained multiple redundant systems, thousands of individual weapons, and defensive capabilities that exceeded anything in Elven databases. "Your smallest ship destroyed 9 of our vessels using defensive systems only," Lyrelei observed. "The Iron Wolf is a destroyer class," Kane replied. "Its primary purpose is to protect larger ships from small craft attacks. Point defense is what it's designed for. Captain Rodriguez was following standard protocols for dealing with fighter-sized threats. Scout Maya Starweaver explored the human ships during the prisoner exchange negotiations that followed the battle. What she discovered changed her understanding of technology and warfare forever. The humans had not built their ships to be elegant or beautiful. They had built them to be practical and effective. Every surface served multiple purposes. Walls contained hidden weapon systems. Corridors doubled as ammunition feeds. Even the lighting panels could be converted into communication arrays if necessary. The humans had taken the concept of efficient design to levels that other species had never imagined. "Your ships are like living fortresses," Maya commented to the human engineer who was showing her around. "That's the idea," the engineer replied. "We build everything with the assumption that we'll have to fight for our lives someday. Better to over-engineer our defenses than to underestimate our enemies." Intelligence Officer Nix Quarian worked frantically to compile her report for the Hegemony Council. The document would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Her key finding was simple but terrifying. Human military capability had been underestimated by factors of hundreds or thousands. What humans call a small fleet, Nix wrote with clicking mandibles, would be classified as a strategic deterrent force by any other species. Their routine patrol strength exceeds the military capacity of most galactic civilizations. A true human battle fleet would be capable of conquering entire star systems without significant opposition. The negotiations that followed lasted for weeks. Both the Hegemony and the Elven Dominion were forced to completely revise their territorial claims and military strategies. The humans, for their part, showed remarkable restraint in victory. Admiral Kane offered compensation for the destroyed ships and support for the families of those who had died. The Terran Colonial Authority proposed new treaties that would recognize existing territorial claims while establishing clear boundaries for future expansion. "We don't want to conquer anyone," Kane explained to the assembled alien and elven representatives. "We just want to protect our people and develop our resources in peace. But we will defend ourselves if attacked." Commander Zara recovered from her injuries and, facing the end of her military career, attended the final treaty signing. She had spent 60 years believing that the Hegemony was the strongest military force in the galaxy. Now she understood that her people had been living in a bubble of ignorance. "How many ships would constitute a major human battle fleet?" she asked Admiral Kane during a private moment. Kane considered the question carefully. "For a full-scale military operation, probably 300 to 400 vessels, supported by logistics and supply ships. We haven't deployed anything like that since the Outer Colony Wars 20 years ago." Zara felt her crystalline skin grow cold. 300 human warships, each one more powerful than anything the Hegemony could build. The implications were staggering. Humanity could project military force on a scale that other species literally could not comprehend. The final scene took place months later, as Navigator Kira served as a liaison officer between her people and the humans. She stood on the observation deck of a Hegemony space station, watching a real human battle fleet depart for operations in distant space. 300 ships moved in perfect formation through the darkness. Dreadnoughts that dwarfed entire space stations, carriers that could deploy thousands of fighter craft, support vessels that were larger than most alien battleships. The fleets. Combined firepower could sterilize entire worlds or defend entire star systems. Kira activated her communication system and sent a message to her homeworld. "We were not defeated by human superiority. We were defeated by human normalcy. What they consider routine, we would call impossible. What they call a small fleet, we would call an invasion armada." She paused, watching the human ships disappear into hyperspace. "The galaxy has changed, and we must change with it. The humans are not our enemies unless we make them so. But they are no longer the weak, primitive species we thought we knew. They build their ships to fight against the worst possible threats, then call it standard procedure. They prepare for wars that may never come, then hope they never have to use their preparations. This is not cruelty or aggression. This is wisdom born from hard experience." Kira closed the communication and continued watching the stars. The human fleet was gone, but its message remained clear. Humanity had grown beyond the understanding of older species. They had become something new in the galaxy, something that could not be measured by traditional standards. The age of human expansion was just beginning. Other species could choose to adapt and find their place in this new reality, or they could continue to underestimate the beings who called 5 planet-killing warships a small patrol fleet. Admiral. Lai Relay, now serving as an ambassador rather than a military commander, summarized the new reality in her final report to the Elven Council. We thought we understood power because we had held it for so long. We thought we understood warfare because we had won so many battles. But the humans showed us that true strength comes not from ancient traditions or elegant weapons, but from the willingness to prepare for any possibility and the wisdom to hope such preparations are never needed. The galaxy would never be the same. The small fleet had taught everyone a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. Sometimes the most dangerous opponents are those who call their greatest weapons routine equipment, and the most powerful fleets are those whose commanders hope they never have to prove their strength.